Hello and welcome to episode number 16 of the Ecuador Insider Podcast. I am Jesse Bayer, joined as always by my partner, Darnell Dunn. We are the co-founders and managing partners of Abundant Living Ecuador, a real estate and relocation services firm based out of Loja in southern Ecuador. Hope you guys are all doing well out there today. How you feeling, Darnell?
Very well. The sun's shining here in Loja, Ecuador, so that's a welcome change. Been a lot of rain lately, so we're enjoying it, and we're here to share a bunch of stuff. A lot of stuff on the docket today.
We've got dockets and everything. I'm running on 60% here. I'm taking one for the team. I'm here for you guys. I don't know. I have a seemingly mandatory requirement to pick up smoking every 3 or 4 years for some period of time, which I did fairly recently. And then of course, after about 2 or 3 months of smoking at the most, I get very sick always, and then quit smoking again. So here I am, sick, fighting a cough to be here with you guys today. So yeah, good show today. We're going to talk about a lot in terms of the political economic front. Got quite a bit of company news for you as well. A lot of new properties coming in that will be going on the website over the next few weeks. And, a lot of interesting things going on here in Ecuador. Perhaps we'll even recap a couple of basics as well and get into everything that's going on. So go ahead.
Before we get into that, first of all, contact information. You can reach us in the office, toll free at 888-999-0942.
48.
888-999-0948.
That's 888-999-0948.
Thank you. I'm doing the public service announcement and fucking it up already. Website www.abecuador.com. That's A as in apple, B as in boy, Ecuador.com. Also, our company inbox, if you'd like to reach us via email, is info@abecuador.com. Also, happy to report, I think this might be the first podcast that we've done since we've had the live real estate tour website. So we've been talking about that for a while now, and it's up and ready. We've got our first group tour scheduled for the 4th of January, I believe, 2017. Individual tours are ready to book now. For more information, including dates, itinerary, or to book your individual tour, you can visit us at abectour.com. That's abectour.com.
Yeah, great. And we should probably, we've talked about that the last couple episodes. We should probably touch on that briefly. Again, we're living in the States. We decided we were moving to Ecuador. We did some research from back home, came here, spent 3 weeks traveling, getting to know the country, learning Spanish, and then spent the next, 3 years living in Ecuador, integrating into the society and culture, and opening businesses and investing and learning the language. So we have a really wide breadth of experience, both on the real estate front from back home, internationally, and the investing as well, in terms of our professional backgrounds, and then of course in Ecuador. And when we went through those processes, we took our lumps, I think, like anybody would, learning a language, figuring out how a culture works, figuring out the processes in a new country, figuring out our visa. And so we launched both the real estate tour and relocation services, which we'll get to in a minute. We launched this real estate tour to basically try to give people everything we learned in a year, 2 years, in 10 days. So basically it's a 10-day tour. You get to see what we consider the best part of Ecuador, all the little nooks and crannies, and then you can sign up for a 3-day extension, and we'll show you the majority of the coast as well. So you really see a huge piece of the country, but even a little bit in depth in 10 days. And for the individual tours, we tailor that obviously to your interests. So if you already know you want to be in, a certain region, we can tailor the tour to just that region, or we can give you the tour as it currently stands. And if you get somewhere you want to stay and explore further, we can do that. But yeah, the first group tour, January of the coming year. Individual tours are ready to rock, and I think you or I would have probably the individual tour because we're antisocial. But I think you or I would have signed up for that in hindsight because it's just it's difficult. I think doing it otherwise. It can be an adventure, which can be fun. You enjoyed it. I probably didn't so much the first 3 weeks of travel, but it was a lot of figuring stuff out that we could have done better, and I think that's part of what this tour offers.
Right, and I think in a certain way, we did this ourselves with the agent that took us around, and then also to a lesser extent, other people have done that with us, coming to see tours for or coming to see properties for multiple days, and I think that this is a better option for those people because, in a certain way, people are really, in my understanding, or at least from my experience, people are more often than not, people are in the exploration stage where they're just trying to figure out whether Ecuador is a place for them. They've heard a lot about it, but they're kind of coming to visit, and it's almost like a lot of people, either consciously or subconsciously, tell us that they want properties when they're really not even at that point yet. And I think this real estate tour could be a really good option for them to really create a context for themselves about what it's like to live here, whether it's for them, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And also really do that exploratory real estate research, because you're going to leave with a lot of market information in terms of the real estate market. So you're going to really understand the market, and then if you decide to buy something and you come back, you're going to come back equipped with the information you need, as opposed to having to go through 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year figuring it out, which we did. Obviously, we cut that time down for our clients dramatically because we've done that, but this will cut it down even more so. Let's talk just for a minute about what it is. So you fly into Loja, which is where we're located. Loja is a southern mountain city, a few hours from Cuenca. Day one, basically, you're just going to rest. We give you a spa credit at a really nice spa, and you're going to be in Vilcabamba at a lovely hotel. You can explore the town, you can rest, do your thing. And then basically day two, the tour starts, and we really hit it pretty hard, and we get a lot of we get a lot of things covered in the 10 days. So we're going to be going south of Vilcabamba. We're going to be doing Vilcabamba. We're going to be doing Loja. We're going to be doing Zamora, Saraguro, Gualaceo, Cuenca, Baños, and then a big portion of El Oro province as well. And then if you sign up for the coastal extension, you'll see a large portion of the coast, basically as far north as the Canoa area. So Salinas, Montanita, Puerto Lopez, Puerto Cayo, Manta, Bahia, and Canoa.
And Manta as well.
Yeah. So a lot packed in, and we have it all set up for not just, of course, arrangements and hotels and all that, and we tried to do it well in the sense that we like to travel comfortably. We think you probably like to travel comfortably. We didn't design this to be an uncomfortable kind of roughing it style tour. We picked hotels that we stay at and we like, including spas and things like that, and the mode of transportation as well will be comfortable, and we really want you to also enjoy your time here in addition to the other things, and then you'll have a chance to get all your questions answered. So we have presentations that we've prepared for a whole host of topics, including your visa and in banking in Ecuador and investing in Ecuador and a number of other things. So you'll get a chance for those, and then you'll have access to us as well that just answer all your questions and get all of your case-specific stuff sorted out.
So buy today.
Buy today, exactly. Okay, so that's the tour. We've also officially launched Relocation Services. By the way, you can get to the tour, as Darnell said, ABEC Tour or abectour.com. You can also get to it off of our website, Relocation Services as well. So the website for that is ecrelocation.com, ecrelocation.com. But again, you can get to that off the website as well. Basically, and I won't spend as much time on this, but the idea behind Relocation Services is that we'll basically hold your hand through the entire process of relocating to Ecuador. So if you would like help, visa, banking, getting your things here, getting settled, temporary housing, if you need help on ongoing projects, land-related projects, opening a business, dealing with lawyers, dealing with professional contacts, whatever it is, we make all of that stuff really, really easy for you for a one-time fee, and you'll have access then to that service indefinitely.
And just as a point of clarification, if you're buying a property through us, those services are included with your purchase. If you're not buying a property through us directly, then there's a fee associated with those services.
You can purchase as a standalone. Yeah, if you want help relocating, if you've already in the process of purchasing, we'll just give that to you free. If you may purchase in the future, you can purchase it and then we'll refund it at closing if you end up buying a property through us. So you will not pay whether you've purchased or not. If you buy a property through us, that's part of the service. However, if you just like to relocate here outside of purchasing land or a property, then we offer that standalone as well. Okay, business largely out of the way. New listings we want to talk about?
Yes. One I want to talk about is a property in Malacatos, 2.3 acres, 3 small cottages with an expansive fruit, vegetable, and herb garden off the main property. The other 2 cottages are currently used by the owner as rentals, both short and long-term rentals, about a 10-minute drive away from the center of Malacatos, and very much priced to sell at a $174,000.
How big is that lot?
That's just under a hectare.
Nice views there too. So pretty views of like Malacatos Valley. Not super secluded. So if you want to be very secluded, it wouldn't be that. There's neighbors around, but it's got a nice feel that way. And definitely a good value. There's another and that video is being shot this week. In fact, it should be finished. So we will have that on the site next week.
Yeah.
Another property that just was signed yesterday, which I expect, actually the contract's not even executed yet. It will be signed. We're recording this on Wednesday, March 9th. It'll be signed this week by Friday. But I expect this property to sell very quickly. It's really amazing for what it is. It's a small lot. It just sits on 500 square meters, but it's got a beautiful 1-bedroom finished house on it. Spectacular views. It's right in Vilcabamba, but it's like very close walking distance to the town, and yet it's pretty private where it's set. Gardens, organic gardens, great water, houses being sold completely furnished. I mean, right down to the cutlery and glasses. Beautiful design. It's like an adobe house, but semi-modern. This beautiful like stone shower. The energy of the property just feels really good. It feels great to be there, and the asking price on that is going to be $158, so very affordable way to live in a great town in Ecuador and have a property that needs no work whatsoever.
Turnkey property, I like it.
Yeah. Do you want to chat about that one in Rumishitana real quick? How similar is that to the one in Rumishitana that we just sold, that we're selling right now?
It's different. It's different, and it has a different feel only because the road separates the
from the water
body of the property from the river. But it's a beautiful wood house. It's situated on just over 4 hectares. Less usable land, but set up very nice with some really sweet walking trails. Has some cultivation set up as well too. And the house is just ready to live in as well. So those are some of the advantages that it has, and that will be listed at $249. We'll be executing the contract sometime this week, potentially today, but more than likely Friday.
So if you go to the website and you're on the listings page and you check out the one called the Perfect Hacienda, which is actually will be in contract later this week, so that's off the market. This one is located in that same valley, just a minute down the road, not even a minute down the road, just a few seconds down the road from that hacienda.
Literally, they're next door neighbors.
And then there's another 6 or 7 properties in the pipeline we'll be talking about over the next couple of weeks. We should have a whole bunch of properties getting emailed out. If you're not on our email list and want to be, head to the site and sign up. And we'll get you all those property alerts as they come online. I wanted to talk very briefly as well before we get into the news. There's a really interesting investment opportunity that we've identified that we would like to participate in, and are very well equipped to do so. However, the majority of our capital is tied up in other things, so we would be stretching it a bit to try to take it on ourselves, and that is this. Really, and Darnell, please chime in here at any time. Really, almost everybody that comes to us who's looking to move to Ecuador is looking for almost the same thing. They're looking for a property that's accessible, has water, has electricity. They very often are looking for views, very often looking for water that originates on the land. If the land has roads already built within it, even better. If it's landscaped and has fruit trees and stuff like that, even better. If there's a home already built, that's kind of icing on the cake. Some people are willing to build, but that's even, more attractive. So everyone is really looking for the same thing, and they want to be rural, but they want to be also within, reasonable driving distance of amenities.
Essentially, they're looking for a suburb in a certain way, not in the sense that they want to be, have their neighbor, on top of them, but they want the suburb distance from the city. I think maybe that's it. Right.
And so, we've had these kind of same requests over and over again for the same sort of property, and those properties are all over the place, except they're not developed. So, we've got fincas that meet the bill and fit the criteria in terms of views, water, access, electricity, and proximity. Lots of them. But for somebody to move to Ecuador not speaking the language and then take that project on themselves, and when I say take that on, I mean getting permissions, getting permits to construct, building the roads on the interior of the property, setting up the water systems, setting up the sewage systems, perhaps cultivating, and doing all of the things to get a property fit for use the way people want to use it is daunting. I mean, I think a lot of people are intimidated by that. We've gone through those processes, and that's a service we provide, overseeing projects, so we'd be happy to do that for somebody. But I think a lot of people are intimidated by that process. And in a certain sense, especially if you don't speak the language, rightfully so, it is different getting those things done here. So that being said, as a real estate company, we really understand the demand. And so if we had, a lot of places like this, we could sell 100 of them very quickly, because everyone's looking for the same thing. So if we took some of these fincas that we come across that are sometimes distressed, often being sold at really good prices, if we took them on, purchased them ourselves, divided them up into lots, but huge lots, like basically fincas within themselves, so large tracts of land, because these fincas, we're talking 50, 70, 80, 100 hectare fincas, gigantic pieces of land. Multiply that by 2.5 acres. Divided them up into 2 to 8 different home sites, and then brought in all the infrastructure. So hooked up the electricity, hooked up the water, properly, hooked up built the roads, potentially even built a home or two, did some landscaping. I mean, there's so much water on a lot of these properties. You could even build, streams or rivers running by the home sites, so they all had water. Anyways, the point is you could make them really, really attractive for what everybody is looking to buy, and you could make a lot of money as well, because you can pick these up for very often under 200,000, and if you could chop them up and sell 8 for $1.50 a pop, all set up, and that would be actually a great value to people. Imagine if for 150 you could get the finca of your dreams all hooked up, just ready to build. So a business that would do very well, something that we're in really good position to execute. So if somebody is out there looking for an investment opportunity, we think we have a really good one, and we'd love to chat with you about your interest in it.
Great.
Okay.
Next, well, there's a lot of... We touched on some of the cultural stuff that maybe we wanted to touch back on again, just about people relocating here, going over the basics, kind of tying into that email that you sent out a couple weeks ago, so we can go that route, or not a couple weeks ago, but fairly recently. And there's also the political stuff. Yeah.
So maybe just very briefly recap, because we've been kind of prefacing here for a while in terms of the meat of the show, but and we've written blogs about all this stuff. So if you go back, especially to the early blogs, if you want to read about the weather, if you want to read about cultural differences and all those kinds of things, it's there. But we'll recap a few of those very briefly. So Ecuador's climate is controlled by altitude. So the higher you are, the colder it is, as a rule of thumb. The lower you are, the warmer it is. And because where we are, and most of Ecuador is this way, we're in the mountains, altitude changes very quickly. So we're in the land of microclimates. Within an hour from where we live, there's 4 distinct climates. So you can find little pockets in terms of the weather that you're looking for all over, really. So that's kind of weather. The mountains are often pretty dry, not uncomfortably dry. We're not talking desert dry, but just not a lot of humidity. There's rainforest, and there's lots of humidity there. You can be above the mosquito line if you'd like to be, which is around 6,000, 6,500 feet. Above that, there's no biting bugs. The coast can be humid, but it's often pretty comfortable. It's not usually like overbearing heat, although it can be in certain places and in certain periods of time. There are seasons here. Basically, there's 2 seasons. There's dry season and rainy season. Rainy season does not mean, we're not talking monsoons. It just means that it rains. During dry season, it really doesn't rain. What else?
Let me think about this for a second. No, that pretty much covers it, I think, generally speaking.
That's a very bare bones weather report.
Right.
And the weather here is great. I mean, the weather here is great. It really has whatever you want. I mean, I guess maybe not freezing cold unless you go up to like the top of a volcano, but outside of like harsh winter, it's got everything
right.
you want.
Yeah, and it's, being that the equator passes through Ecuador, like, it's pretty stable, the weather year round. For example, here in Loja, whether it's rainy season or dry season, like, there's sort of ways, the weather is generally one way in the wintertime and generally one way, generally one way in dry season, generally one way in rainy season, but you can have wet weather in dry season and dry weather in rainy season.
And that gets back to the microclimates. Like Loja is its own microclimate. It rains all year round. There is no dry season.
Never dries out here.
Never dries out. And in fact, in a certain way, it has something of the opposite season to the rest of southern Ecuador. So, those are like the not in every way, but in as far as rain anyhow. Mm-hmm. So that's some of the microclimate stuff. I mean, you drive just down the road and it's totally different.
Right. You go to where the airport is in Catamayo, 40 minutes away from here. You drop down about 3,000 feet or so. It's
very dry, very hot.
Very hot, windy, dry.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a quick weather recap. Let's jump into politics just for 2 seconds as far as a recap. So, Ecuador has a socialist president, and he's done a lot of good things in the country, a lot of infrastructure work, and stability and all of that. And he's also made life more difficult on the regulatory tax front. And there's been scary tax proposals that have come down the pike. A number of months ago, he was talking about a outlandish capital gains tax on real estate, which would have hurt our business quite a bit. So far, none of the super crazy stuff has been enacted. He's got a year left in office. There was an election next year, and so it's somewhat of an undecided time here in Ecuador as to how that'll go.
Right, and a lot of the groundwork was laid for some of these proposals when he rewrote the Constitution. And subsequently gave himself two more years, because he's actually in his third term.
Right.
Because he was originally elected in maybe 06 or 07. Then they wrote the new Constitution. He started over in 2009, and then has served two terms since then. So he'll be wrapping up with his third term in 2017.
Yeah.
Which we are waiting with bated breath till he's out of here.
Right.
Who knows, what will come next, but it couldn't be any worse.
No, it couldn't. No, and the reason we say that is there's just and maybe there's a good segue into some of the news, but there's just really laughably absurd socialist policies that get proposed all the time and enacted from time to time. There's a policy that they've just passed. I don't know if it's been signed by him yet. I don't think it has.
Yeah, it's going to the assembly, but it was included. The basis for the law was included in the new Constitution.
You want to?
So I'll touch on this. There's a couple of articles. Geez, I could probably talk about this forever. But there's one article from telesudtv.net, which I believe is out of Venezuela. Yeah, just to give you some perspective on their perspective on the news. They've got a banner ad on the page that has a picture of Hugo Chavez in the years that he was born. And, his lifespan, and a picture of him, they're paying tribute to Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez died almost 3 years ago. And they're still
and left the destruction of a country in his wake.
Right. But we're still, they're
So a socialist publication.
Yes, exactly. So the article is titled, Ecuador's Congress Passes Law to End Land Hoarding by Rich.
Someone just needs to define to me what land hoarding is. If I take my money and I buy land, am I hoarding it at that point? Where do I cross the line from not hoarding land to hoarding? Am I allowed to live on it before I'm what is land hoarding?
Yeah. Who decides that? So if I've got, my family has owned the same piece of land for generations, does that mean that we're hoarding it? Is hoarding a function of time, of amount?
You're a hoarder. They're going to do a reality TV show on you for your land hoard. Look at this guy with all his land. He's hoarding. Yeah, right. You have a psychological condition. I think it's a new psychological condition.
Right. Land hoarding. And, it's interesting because if I'm an individual that owns land, I'm land hoarding. But we're really, in the grand scheme of things, talking about, property rights and who is to own, the land, the means of production, whatever you want to call it, the government or the people. So if the people don't own it, well then if the government owns it, is that not hoarding?
No, they own it for the people, Darnell. You forgot. They're gonna take your land and hoard it for you.
But they're not hoarders.
No, they're against hoarders. That's why they're passing laws.
Right. And I'm sure that though these rules about land hoarding don't apply to the people who are in the government.
They're gonna take the land that you've hoarded and give it to China,
so they can hoard it
for the people.
Right. So they can pay the debt of the people.
Right.
I mean, it's very similar to, and not to get too off topic, but it's very similar to the law that they passed in the United States that allowed Congress to participate in insider trading, quote unquote.
Yeah, right.
That's a whole.
I mean, and I'm rusty on that history, but I thought they had the right for like a bazillion years, and then they took the right away for like a couple of years, and then they decided this was just too much. They have to give the right back. For Congress to have insider trading.
That's what it was.
They gave it back, so just in case people weren't clear that they were getting robbed by the politicians, they just wanted to make that abundantly clear to us.
Right. So if I'm on the Ways and Means Committee, or some committee that's overseeing the FDA or something like that, and I find out that they're creating this revolutionary drug way before anybody else knows about it, and then buy the stock of the company that does, and that stock goes through the roof, it's okay as long as I'm not trading for my own account, that I hire somebody to do it. It's like
intermediate. It's
like, oh, there's a blind trust. So in other words, instead of doing it myself, I told somebody else so they could do it for me, and that absolves me of any wrongdoing. Or of taking advantage of my position as a member of the government.
No, well, nobody goes into government to get rich. After all, it's a noble trade. I mean, that's why.
Yeah. All right, like Correa's a millionaire now. He's been in office for going on 10 years now. The guy makes $6,000 to $8,000 a month. So how is he a millionaire? It's like if he saved every penny.
I mean, supposedly he went in without money.
Right. So if he saved every penny he had so if you make $6,000 a year, or excuse me, $6,000 a month, for a year, how much is that?
Oh my God! What? 6,000?
6 times 12.
I don't know. I don't do math in my head. Let me look it up. You're the financial guy.
Yeah, right. I should be able to do that in my head, but
I think it's like 144, right? No, 72. 72,000.
So multiply 7. Okay, so I mean that's less than if he saved every penny that he ever made, like didn't do anything.
He'd be at 720 after a decade. Yeah,
720 after a decade. But he's buying homes in Europe for millions of dollars that he doesn't pay capital flight tax on. But he's a man of the people. He's just looking out for us, and not making any money for himself.
At least he's not a hoarder. So, anyways, what does the law do?
Yeah, the law says that basically, I've read a couple articles on this. It doesn't exactly say what it does.
Yeah.
It just puts some broad principles about what it's all about. It's interesting how they frame it. I think they make stealing land from private citizens, and they make it sound so noble, like they're doing something to like help the country and move the country, quote unquote, forward. So I'll just get into reading it a little bit. The Ecuadorian National Assembly approved on Thursday new modifications to the country's proposed land law. Okay, they made modifications to a proposed law. Interesting. So, is it proposed or is it law? Okay. The legislative measure was passed by 92 votes in favor and will go to the president, Rafael Correa, for final approval. The director of the Commission for Food Sovereignty, Miguel Carvajal, highlighted the important aspects of the bill which aim to improve agricultural production, the redistribution of idle land, and the end of concentration of land in the hands of a few. Oh.
Right.
That's just socialist prose right there. I mean,
The Marxians got a little wet when you read that.
He splooged a little bit in his pants.
I should say. Right.
And then there's a related article titled "Land Grab in Crosshairs as Ecuador Passes Major Land Reform." And my favorite, the struggle for land reforms and food sovereignty in Ecuador. I mean, this reads like, this is like, people back home in Massachusetts would be so into this. Like, my NPR crowd back home would be like, oh, food sovereignty. Like, they have all these like buzzwords and catchphrases and, land reform, food sovereignty, food desert.
Food desert. I remember that one. I also went to I was a political science major. Like, I did the whole liberal, education college thing. Like, we had like a whole thing on food deserts. Like, good Lord.
It's just amazing how, they just like put these different things together. But anyway, I digress. He went on to note that the latest draft to regulate the use and access to rural land so that it meets the social and environmental norms. If approved, the bill will also grant access to lands to small-scale farmers through a credit fund set up through the National Assembly. Right. I wonder who they'll pay interest to.
Yeah, right. And they also say, like, the National Assembly gets to, like, decide what land they redistribute, a.k.a. steal.
Right. Not to mention, what criteria would they use for determining whether land is idle or not?
Right.
So it's like, if I'm living there and you want it.
Is it idle? Yes. Right. No, Ecuador passes a lot of scary laws, which they can't really implement, this being another one of them. But it's a very scary law, and when you hear these kinds of things here, and obviously the code words here are different than they are in places like the States, but when you hear these kinds of things here, all of this just means there's going to be more taxes and regulations. So it's like, you're going to have less freedom of what you can do on your land, even rural land. In fact, this one is aimed at rural land, and you're going to have more taxes and more regulations surrounding both the use and what you can do with it. So
this news is also interesting in the context of Ecuador using a large portion of the Amazonian region as payment to China for outstanding debt.
Right. No, this is the joke that is government. It's like, on the one hand, and Ecuador is a big participant in this, they scream about global warming, carbon-based global warming. And
carbon sequestration.
Right. And so, they're going to do all they can to lower, carbon emissions, blah, blah, blah. And yet, with the other hand, what are they doing? Handing over the Amazon rainforest to China to drill for oil.
Right. And giving away quote unquote idle land so that it can be used for agriculture. So if we've got like a forest here, they're going to decide, this land is idle.
I don't think they will do that because they're crazy about forests. But the point remains like. And also,
the land that are they so crazy about that? The forest land that they gave to the Chinese to clear cut to drill.
No, that's the joke of it. Here's another great example. They have here an engine tax. Like, they tax you on the size of your fucking car engine. Like, from the Marxists, get ready, get the vibrator out. They tax you on the size of your engine under the pretext of sustainability and environmental blah 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 and carbon blah blah blah. And so what does that do? Well, it makes you have a tax, an annual tax to drive. What does that do? It takes money out of your pocket. Well, is the government serious about this whole carbon thing they say exists? No, they're drilling in the rainforest for oil.
Right.
So
they're serious about it unless the Chinese say you have to give me that.
So it's just don't believe the hype, folks. When you government talks about all the good they want to do, look at it from the big picture. Are they actually following through on their ideological slant to do this good thing, or do they just mean they want to implement another cost for you?
Right. And that doesn't even get into like who should decide about those things and all those other things. These are just about like dollars and cents.
Right. No, and I mean that's the thing. The way that government functions, well, the way that government functions anywhere, it's just maybe more pronounced here in a certain way, is that it just represses economic activity. And then the more it represses economic activity, the more it creates demand for itself. So you have government say, pass all these labor laws and quote environmental laws and laws regulating, when you can move your cattle, which they recently did here, and laws regulating, what you can do on your land and how you can sell it and how you can buy it. And, they're talking about outlawing land speculation, whatever that means. And, they pass all these laws and then they make the economy grind to a halt because you can't do anything. There's too much red tape, there's too much taxes, there's too much regulations for there. And I like the word they use here. They use movimiento, which is like movement, when they talk about the economy. So the economy slows, and what does government do? Well, then they implement all their big helpful plans. Oh, well, now we're going to have Social Security insurance, or now we're going to have
unemployment insurance.
That's what I meant. Sorry, unemployment insurance, or now we're going to create this program that's going to create jobs and blah blah blah. So what do you?
Now we're going to give you a credit card so that you can.
Right. Oh, the bank's more money, which they actually do here. So it's like
he really said that. He got on his Saturday variety show,
which he has. Yes, that's correct. The president has a variety show. Yeah,
when he speaks directly to the people, and he was telling them that for a family that has a head of household out of work, a viable option would be for them to feed their family with a credit card.
Yeah, and it's like I almost feel like that's just a sham though, because like he says that to scare everybody, and then 2 months later they pass unemployment insurance. So it's like it's like look what the crazy boogeyman president said in this case. We better do what we wanted to do in the first place, which is pass unemployment insurance and a new tax to go along with it.
That's a very good point. Let me just wrap up with this article real quick, because there's another one that goes into this in a little bit more detail I also want to cover. Let's see. Yeah, I touched on that part. Here it is. The legislation also specifies that foreign state companies may only invest in agricultural production inside Ecuador in conjunction with the state enterprise or with an Ecuadorian business approved by the National Agrarian Authority. So it's like that's very loaded. Obviously, I see the look on your face.
I can't, when you say things like that, like the National Agrarian Society, I just can't. It's just, we're living in an Ayn Rand novel. Like, go read Ayn Rand. That's the world you're living in. Right.
Well, I just I changed my voice like that for effect.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't imitating you.
No,
that you have to change your voice to read some like ridiculous
National Agrarian Authority. And it's just, they throw in. There's this undercurrent of nationalism in all these things that they talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, a foreign company can't invest in Ecuador unless they have an Ecuadorian partner.
Right.
It's like. That has nothing to do with whether it'll be successful or not, or whether people will do better or not.
Or or jobs or anything else.
Anything like that. Think about the hydroelectric dams that they're producing here.
The Chinese don't need those partners.
Right. Well, that's because the Ecuadorian government owes them too much money.
Yes.
And here's the best part about it. Here's how they wrap up with the article. Agriculture is a very important part of the Ecuadorian economy, representing 2% of the country's GDP and comprises 30% of the total workforce. It's like, I don't know. It doesn't seem to me that we should be reforming something that like contributes so little to economic output. It's like, lots of people are doing it. It doesn't really produce much. Yeah. So I guess their idea is that if we reform this, then we'll make more efficient use of that 30% of the total workforce through government action. Is that what we're saying? Like,
look what happened when they passed the capital flight tax. all investment left Ecuador. The president said, oh, we're going to have a capital flight tax to keep money in the country. Well, what did that do? Stopped all the money from coming into the country. Why? You've got a fucking capital flight tax. You know what I mean? So, while they're out there touting international investment, which means, China drilling in the Amazon. That's the international investment they're talking about.
Yeah,
you and I coming to Ecuador making money, that's not international investment they're talking about.
No. They're like, let's clear everybody out of here so that we can give the rest of the, give everything to China, give them, the best opportunity.
No, and that's the point of all of these reforms. Like, you see the government trying to regulate more and more what goes on rural land. This is Agenda 21. They're trying to clear it. They would like people living in the cities, not out in the country. So they influence that through tax and regulatory policy.
Here's the other article, same source, titled "Ecuador's Land Law Seeks to Promote Greater Food Sovereignty." I think this is one of the related ones that I highlighted in the last article I read. Ecuador's land law seeks to adequately redistribute land and give greater rights to campesinos, or, rural farmers.
Right.
The San Carlos neighborhood in the outskirts of Quito is the site of a former hacienda, or estate, run by the Jesuit order, another great organization.
Well, it's still run by the Jesuit order, just a little less directly. Once
disintegrated, the hacienda was divided into 500 family plots. The land of the hacienda, once growing corn, beans, potatoes, and wheat, are now developed or are considered unfit for agricultural production. Residents of San Carlos are seeking to promote food sovereignty through redistribution and collectively making these lands productive once again. So, in other words, people were living there and now it's not fit for agricultural production. Duh. And so they're seeking through redistribution. They are seeking. So not anything to do with the government. They just, this is the voice of the people who said,
we want his land to give it to us.
Just incredible. All right. In the view of these residents, they would gain these rights through the land law currently being debated in Ecuador's National Assembly. Convenient. Quote unquote, quote, "These lots are still ours. The campesinos, the same people of San Carlos, have been cultivating the land and making them productive, because this is the only land we have left. And this is what we're hoping for with the law, that these lands left over from the hacienda are given to the San Carlos neighborhood so that they can complete a social function," end quote, said a resident of San Carlos, Renato Sucuyo, in front of the plot next to his home where he is growing corn. So the people have spoken.
Let's take the land.
Yeah, said, given back to the neighborhood. You mean
the government?
Yeah, because those people that you're talking about are in the neighborhood as well too. Like this, this was divided up. So like one person in the neighborhood says like, yeah, like I want that guy's land over there because I want to grow food.
For food sovereignty, I don't know.
And because we don't want to have any food deserts running around here. We got to keep that food desert aerated. The land law seeks to ensure food sovereignty, redistribute land, and stimulate national agricultural production. The National Assembly would be responsible for determining which lands, if unproductive, would be expropriated. Having a lot of trouble reading in it.
And what they don't say there, it's like they don't say, so they're going to take the land away and, quote, give it to the community. But who's going to maintain ownership? The government. By the community, they mean the government.
Right.
And then, the government...
Because we are the people.
The government may say, like, all right, you can use this for X, Y, or Z. But all they've done is taken land out of the private sector into the public sector and then, they might have this idea tomorrow and today, and tomorrow another idea, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's their land.
Right. I mean, this is like a return to feudalism. You know, the people are going to be like, oh, we're going to improve the national food sovereignty by us controlling the land and, you know, bringing you in, campesino, as like a, you know, as a serf. Right. You know, you can work the land and you can get some of the food, but, you know, the food has to be here to... And
we'll tell you what kind of crops to grow, and we'll tell you, you know, the whole...
You know, GMOs and all that other stuff. It's like, you know, he who has the gold makes the rules. Just very, very troubling.
It's amazing. I don't know how they managed dialectically to get people to replace the word us with government as if it's the same thing. Like, someone can say, like, we should have higher taxes, or we should get this land, and they mean the government. How do those, like, I'm sorry, so if the government raises taxes on, if I advocate higher taxes and they implement higher taxes and take more of Darnell's money, do I benefit from that? Do I get more money, like, in my paycheck on Friday, am I part of that we that people say when they say, like, we? Like, no, that, like, the government just stole more of someone else's money. There's now less money in the economy. There's now less economic activity. There's less jobs. There's less businesses. There's less stuff and more government. Like, how did they manage to pull that off? You know,
it's funny. I mean, I think it's like all these things. It's just kind of it's like a situation of, like, degrees. I mean, they start with everything. I mean, think about how you or I might refer to our sports teams. Like, you know, you're talking about the Eagles, we. You know, I'm talking about the Patriots, we. You know, or, you know, people from, you know, where I'm from, we. Or,
sure.
You know, and it's just kind of like, so government or government-related things is just one more thing. You know, you get somebody sort of saying the one thing, you know, over and over again related to a bunch of different things, and it's kind of like they just kind of slip it in there, and you know, now government is one of those things.
They slip it in there, and taxes are going up.
Yeah, right. I mean, think about tax rates in general. Oh, you know, rich people need to pay their fair share of taxes.
Fair share.
But if you make $1 million and I make 100,000 and we both pay 10%, last time I checked, 10% of a larger number is a larger number. So what's the rationale
for the people? So
what's the rationale for you paying a higher tax rate because you make more money?
Well, I mean, I know what the rationale is. But I'm not gonna. We're not gonna get into that. But you know, obviously, well, you know too, of course. But I mean, yes, agreed.
Well, you know, millionaires and billionaires shouldn't pay more than Barb, the secretary. Like, you know, just.
Well, how about we just get rid of all non-voluntary situations? We get rid of all coercive situations, such as guys with guns collecting taxes. And have a voluntary society.
Well, you know, I mean, we didn't have a national income tax in the United States until 1913.
Right. And what else happened that year? Federal Reserve Act to ring a bell?
You know, before then, people were able to build roads just fine. There's lots of roads built in the United States before 1913.
Were you done with that?
Yeah, let me wrap up with this real quick, and then we can move on. If the law is approved, the National Assembly would create a land fund, providing credit and support to those campesinos seeking greater access to land. Representative of the government of the Alangasi, where San Carlos is located, Gustavo Ares, told Telesur English, First there need to be, that's okay. They're translating this and messing it up. First, there need to be incentives, economic incentives with credits that are long-term. Agriculture is a long-term investment. It is not something that you can do from one day to the next. To be able to revive the lands, commercialize products, and to have necessary guidance.
And the market won't cover that, of course, because people don't want to eat. So the government needs to get involved and, make sure that they're commercializing products. Because without the government, who would be commercializing products?
Yeah.
Nobody. Just
no, because somebody needs to tell the farmer that if he's grown more than he needs to eat himself, that he can sell it for money.
Right. The government needs to play the middleman. Well,
they need necessary guidance for that.
I mean, basically what they're talking about is they're going to confiscate land and then they're going to lend money at interest to people to then, farm it in the way that they say.
Many campesinos and indigenous organizations are united behind the land law, as it is seen as strengthening family agriculture and providing the opportunity to commercialize their goods.
This is from a socialist Venezuelan news source talking about commercializing goods.
In reclaiming these lands and making them again, the National Confederation of Campesinos, Indigenous, and Black Organizations, they have this...
Black?
Yes. They have
Indigenous and Black Wow.
Yeah. Well, we just have to put all the disenfranchised groups together.
Gays as well? Are they
no gays.
And single mothers? And
No single moms. Just campesinos, indigenous, and Black organizations. One neck ready for one leash. See this law as a form of historical redistribution. Yes, it's historical redistribution. All right. The leader of this, alphabet organization, Franklin Columba said, above all else, it is a law that allows for the strengthening of these sectors that have been abandoned for decades. We believe that as a united organization, we are going to work to see this become a reality, end quote. Under discussion, the land law will work to eliminate the concentration and fragmentation of lands and provide greater access to those campesinos seeking to provide food for their communities and stimulate national production. I mean, huh? What does that even mean?
Well, I mean, it's not designed to mean anything. Otherwise, people would understand what he's really saying.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. We're eliminate the concentration and fragmentation of lands.
That's the opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, just the same as, so is, the campesinos seeking to provide food for the communities and stimulate national production.
Right, you're right.
So they want to do it for themselves, but they want to do it for their country.
The point is they'd like to take the land, and other than that, they're just saying stuff.
Wah, 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 steal your land. So, yeah, that concludes our discussion on land reform.
Land reform. Oh, it's great. Well, they've brief other Ecuador news. Correa sends package of labor reforms to the National Assembly as unemployment rises. This is out of Cuenca High Life. So they've relaxed some of the labor laws. They're saying that unemployment will top 5% by the end of March. Basically you can hire people now for 30 hours and which you couldn't do before, and fixed term labor contracts are more flexible than they used to be. A recognition of some of the economic turmoil, or as they say here, crisis that's taking place in Ecuador, which everybody here will tell you very quickly about the crisis that's taking place here. We've also got some volcanic activity going on, and I think this kind of touches on one of the many reasons we think this is the best part of Ecuador, is that it's a part of Ecuador free from things like volcanic activity. But I'm not going to pronounce this well.
Tungurahua.
Say again?
Tungurahua.
Yeah, I'll leave that one to you. Volcano has been exploding, and then they've also had Cotopaxi. They're continuing to warn about Cotopaxi, which is a gigantic volcano erupting. So
second largest in the country.
High alert! code orange. Yeah. Osama bin Laden, watch out. No, but the volcanic activity. So again, that stuff's in the north, which is why one of the many reasons we're in the south.
It's only like 50 kilometers from Quito. You can see it in the from the city.
Yeah.
Beautiful sight, snow-capped mountain.
Yeah, one of the many, really cool nature-based things to do in Ecuador.
Yeah.
Go hike those mountains. They go up really high, like, and get up to 17,000 feet or some crazy number.
Yeah, Cotopaxi is the second highest. I think that's around 17 or 18. And then the other one, which is on the Ecuadorian flag, what's the name of that? It's Cotopaxi, and what's the other one? Whatever the other one is the highest one. It's like 20,000 feet, close to 21,000. And it's like the highest mountain in the world from like the base of the mountain, like underground or something like that. I forget. It didn't make any sense to me when I read it. And I read it like multiple times, but by some measure, it's the highest.
Reading those translated articles again.
It's the highest, by some measure, it's the highest land structure in the world or something like that.
And then, along those lines, basically, Kuwait has broken the OPEC production freeze, and people the OPEC countries are talking about, and they're always at full production anyway. They always lie about that whole thing, but they're, with oil production where it is high and the prices where they're at low, you're probably not, and some, scary global economic stuff on the horizon. You're probably not going to see the crisis that they're having here subside anytime soon, because the government gets a huge portion of its revenue from oil money, which right now is extremely low.
Chimborazo is the name of the highest mountain. 20,564 feet. Cotopaxi is 19,347 feet.
Okay. So that's a few of the things going on today. I'm tapping out. I'm sick. I'm going back to the office. I'm lying. I would like to go home and sleep, but I'll have to put that on hold for a couple hours. We'll get into more of the global financial stuff next week. Do you have anything you wanted to hit on before we wrap up?
No, that was it. I just encourage people to check out our real estate tour at abectour.com. You can also reach it through our website at www.abecuador.com. Also, to find out more about relocation services, you can visit us at ecrelocation.com. And toll free in the office, 888-999-0948, via email at info@abecuador.com. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll speak to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.